And off your mind, relax and float downstream.
It's been a great year for music fans. Last year saw the release of Ravi Shankar's 4-CD box set In Celebration, and this year has brought us the release of the new album Chants of India, produced by George Harrison. And it's a great thrill for me to be here today with two of the greatest living artists in music from the East and from the West, Ravi Shankar and George Harrison. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
George, how did you first come to meet Ravi and discover the music?
During the days when there was the mania, the Beatlemania, well, I got involved with the records. You know, I bought some of Ravi's records and I listened to it, and although my intellect didn't really know what was happening or didn't know much about the music, just the pure sound of it and what it was playing, it just appealed to me so much. It hit a spot in me very deep, and it was, you know, I just recognized it somehow. And along with that, I just had a feeling that I was going to meet him. It was just one of those things. And at the same time, when I played the sitar very badly on a Beatle record, then Ravi was coming to London. A lot of press were trying to set it up that we'd meet, but I just avoided that. You know, I didn't want it to, you know, be on the front of a newspaper as a gimmick, because it meant more to me than that. So I thought, well, I'll wait and meet him in my own time. And that arrived on an occasion. There was a society called Asian Music Circle. And the fellow who ran that, who I'd got to know, he said Ravi's going to come. He was in London, he was going to come for lunch, and we met like that way. Then he came to my house and got me to learn how to hold the sitar and put me through the basic lessons of sitar.
Ravi, I've always wanted to ask you, how did you feel the first time you heard Norwegian Wood? What did you honestly think of George's sitar playing?
Well, my niece and nephews, they made me hear this, and that was after I met George. I hadn't heard anything before that, and I was not much impressed by it, you know. But I saw the effect on the young people. I couldn't believe it. Even in India, it's not only in the West, but it seems they were just lapping it up, as you say. You know, they loved it so much.
How did the other guys in the Beatles react when you started bringing this, when you brought this instrument into the studio?
Well, in those days, you know, we were growing very quickly, and there was a lot of influences that we were. I mean, that was the best thing about our band. We were very open-minded to everything. And there was we were listening to all kinds of music, you know, like avant-garde music. Later became known as Avant-Garde Clue. And various things like that. So, you know, they just thought, oh, that's good. They liked the sound of it. And it, on Norwegian Wood, it was one of those songs which just needed something to make it, give it that little extra. And the sitar, I'd bought a very cheap one in a shop called India Craft in London, and even though it sounded bad, it still fitted onto the song, and it gave it that little extra thing, so they were quite happy about it. I went to India to be with Ravi, to see India, to learn some music and just to experience India, but I also wanted to know about the Himalayas. That is the thing that's always fascinated me about the idea that, I mean, it may sound like a lofty thing to say on VH1, but basically, you know, what are we doing on this planet? And I think through the Beatle experience that we'd grown so many years within a short period of time. I'd experienced so many things and met so many people, but I realized there was nothing actually that was giving me a buzz anymore. I wanted something better. I remember thinking, I'd love to meet somebody who will really impress me. And that's when I met Ravi, which was funny, because he's this little fella with an obscure instrument from our point of view, and yet it led me into such depths. And I think that's the most important thing. It still is for me. You know, I get confused when I look around at the world and I see everybody's running around, and, you know, as Bob Dylan said, he not busy being born is busy dying, and yet nobody's trying to figure out what's the cause of death and what happens when you die. I mean, that to me is the only thing really that's of any importance. The rest is all secondary. I believed in the thing that I read years ago, which I think was in the Bible. It said, knock and the door will be opened. And it's true. If you want to know anything in this life, you just have to knock on the door, whether that be physically on somebody else's door and ask them a question, or, which I was lucky to find, is the meditation. You know, it's all within. And that's really why, for me, this record's important, because it's another little key to open up the within for each individual to be able to sit and turn off your mind, relax and float downstream, and listen to something that has its roots in a transcendental, because really even all the words of these songs, they carry with it a very subtle spiritual vibration, and it goes beyond intellect really. So if you let yourself be free to let that have an effect on you, it can have an effect, a positive effect.
Ravi, how was it for you when you first met George? What was your take on Beatlemania?
I'm ashamed to say that I knew almost nothing about them when I, you know, first met them, excepting that they're very popular. And meeting them in that party, I was so impressed by George at that time, who looked so much younger, and, you know, he was so inquisitive, asking about so many different things, mostly music, sitar, and of course, along with that, certain spiritual. And the only thing I felt that his enthusiasm was so real, you see, and I wanted to give as much as I could through my sitar, of course, because that's the only thing that I know of. Rest I cannot express. He talks so beautifully, but he's used to words. He writes poems, he writes songs. I do sometimes, you know, foolishly, but I'm not that much expressive. I express myself through notes, musical notes. So it's a different way of, but anyway, as you said, when I met him, and we started off immediately after a few days, as you said earlier, to sit properly, how to hold the sitar, and you know, how to handle the finger position and all that, the basic things. And he was so interested and he was so quick in learning. And then we fixed immediately for him to come to India, and he came. We fixed it for 6 weeks, but unfortunately it didn't happen because people recognized him after a week or so, and there was such a commotion in Bombay that we had to run away to Kashmir and live in a houseboat and all that. But unfortunately he had to leave. There was some...
Probably Sergeant Pepper or something was getting...
happened. Then I found, my God, what a... I couldn't believe that any 4 people could create such, you know, storm all over the world.
The Spice Boys.
And it was not that I was unknown or anything, you know, I was playing concerts in Carnegie Hall and different places, but as a classical Indian musician. But with the moment it was known that he has become my disciple, and it was like a wildfire. You know, I became so popular with the young people all of a sudden, and I was rediscovered, as I say. And then I took that role of a superstar for a number of years because of him. That, you know, the whole thing was going a bit not to my liking because of the association of drugs and things like that. So I really had very difficult time for next few years to put my music in the right pedestal or right place. But because I did that, it's because why I'm here today also, sitting with you. Otherwise I wouldn't have been here. People have really come to understand the depth and the seriousness of our music, along with all the you know, enjoying part of it, the entertainment part, that is there. But the true root, and that's what is also projected in this particular record.
All things must pass. All things must pass away.